My name is Yvette Pegues. Thank you for joining us at disAbilityLifeTV. I will be your host, and today we have our special guest, Shane Barron. We're going to discuss communication. We're going to discuss some other really important things I think you want to stay tuned for. So without further ado, Mr. Barron, how are you?
Great.
Excellent. I'm so glad to have you here. So Shane and I, just so our viewers will recognize, have kind of a relationship, if you will, in a lot of different areas. So we're Toastmasters together. We are working on some really exciting things that hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about towards the end of the show. So stay tuned and let's meet Shane. So Shane, I don't know this part about you, but I'd love to get to know you with our viewers watching from the point of childhood. Tell us about where you're from, how you were raised, and a little bit about the special things that our viewers want to know about you.
Okay, Yvette. I'm actually from Kentucky. I was born and raised there until I turned 18 and I moved to Georgia. And I dealt with disabilities most of my life. At 19 days old, I was adopted. And I would say about a year later, they discovered I was having problems walking, and I wasn't walking. I was scooting across the floor, and they discovered that I had cerebral palsy. And I've known ever since that I've had a disability.
And this was how long ago, Shane?
46 years ago.
No way.
Yes.
Wow, see, I would have never told that secret. But the reason why I ask, obviously, is because in 2015, we're celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. I bring that up a lot because those laws were meant to protect people with disabilities, to provide resources, and to provide support. So in the case that you were pre-ADA, and maybe that's the way I should have asked the question, tell me a little bit about how or if you know a change in your life, or as an adult, you're now probably older by the time the ADA was signed. Did you notice any change, pretty much?
I noticed changes in the public areas.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't in the business area where I was as much. In fact, today I still deal with the accommodations in the workforce. People don't know that they can ask for, barriers to be broken and accommodations, and companies don't know that they have a financial tax break when they ask for those from the federal government.
So I hear you saying that you can actually use money that's been set aside to make your business, your organization, your company, your office accessible in a way that it doesn't touch your bottom dollar because of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct.
So let's cycle back a little bit about your childhood. So at 19 days old, you were adopted, which is pretty amazing. I'm sure you had great parents.
Yes.
Tell us about your childhood. Was it difficult? Tell us about what is cerebral palsy. How does that limit you? Why is that even a disability? What does that even look like?
My form of cerebral palsy was caused at birth. You were using forceps, and it was lack of oxygen at birth, and so it caused muscle disabilities in my right side. I'm unable to use my right arm other than to shake someone's hand, so I compensate and use my left side for my dominant side.
Okay. And did you get any pushback by teachers or co-workers, or in case where you're in school and fellow classmates?
Actually, I did. At the early age, my parents wanted to put me in regular school, and immediately they put me in special ed classes, and we had to fight the state of Kentucky so that I could be in normal classes.
What was that fight like? Tell us about it.
It was going to court for my parents. I wasn't involved in the court part of it, but I was finally mostly mainstreamed by third grade, and I had some special need classes. In order, believe it or not, until I was in third grade, I didn't know how to tie my shoe.
Wow.
Because no one knew how to teach a one-handed person how to tie their shoe.
Wow. So that's very interesting. I love that your parents fought for you. not that that should seem irregular, but if we're talking pre-ADA, there were no books, no laws, no measurements, no directions on how to fight for your child with a disability. And to have parents so loving and willing to take it to the highest court so that Shane could have as comfortable a childhood and learn to tie his shoes. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want you to understand that when you live in a household or an environment or a community with a disability, we are so grateful for so many little things. So the fact that you were bullied a little bit, that took a toll. Tell us about that.
Yes, I was bullied from first grade on. My father was a youth pastor, and he was brought into a church, and I had one great friend that stuck with me until today. He's actually one of my best friends. We talk on the phone regularly. He's my mentor and my accountability partner.
Is it okay to say his name?
Yes, it's Brad Egbert.
Thanks, Brad. So what kind of bullying did you experience? What was that like? Is it okay to talk about that just as an experience that we can share with the viewers?
Yes, it was public. It was, you can't do this. You're dumb. Just because mine was physical, they didn't believe in it being a brain thing either. They thought it was, it was also all of it. And they teased me from being stupid to the physical part. I had trouble in PE. They would make fun of me there. And so I was a very quiet child till high school.
Now, you said you were a quiet child. I know Shane, post-childhood, so I don't know if I could totally agree with that. But I just want to ask you, Shane, so were you quiet because you were bullied? Or do you believe that's part of your personality and characteristic? Did any of those words hurt you to a place where you kind of pull back and maybe try to become invisible?
It did, because I wanted to blend in with the crowd and not be noticed.
Right.
And so I was a very quiet person for most of my life. In business, I tried to be a spokesperson, but I was always told, you can't do this, so you haven't been trained to do this. So I've stepped up and done some things in my life to change that.
I want us to be a safe place to talk about really difficult things. So if at any point I cross the line, let me know. We don't have to talk about it. But bullying is very important conversation to me because after my disability, my then 3 and 5-year-olds were bullied pretty often and it wasn't pretty at all. And you could be totally typical without an invisible or physical or obvious disability and still get bullied. I mean, for being tall, short, happy, sad. So I can't imagine now with a physical disability, something you were born with, something you may or may not have known a lot about, to live in that kind of childhood. So the reason why it's important for us to talk about this is because disability is a bad word for a lot of people. It's scary, but it's also a growing population that we need to understand. Another thing that we want to bring to your attention is that other than being bullied, and even including being bullied, every childhood is just about the same. And people with disabilities have some of the same issues, concerns, and solutions as people who don't have disabilities with a little extra. And so we find ourselves having to problem solve a lot, which I think brings about a lot of genius. And on the topic of genius, I'd like to talk about who you've become as a result of some of the things you maybe didn't do as a child and are doing now as an adult. So tell me about some of your gifts and some of the amazing things that you've done just before we move into the break. Is that okay?
Yes.
All right.
I've developed a system where I know I needed to step up. And I decided that I was going to do that and became a friend with a lady by the name of Cindy Cannon, who is a great Toastmaster. And started speaking with her, and she said, why don't you try Toastmasters? And I did. And the first 2 times I went, I was asked to be a timer. And I said, I'm going to mess up. I don't want to do that. I'm very quiet. I've told Yvette many a times that in our friendship, that I was the guy in the back of the room not wanting to speak.
Yes.
And today I'm here on TV. I'm also a public speaker. I speak in front of many hundreds of people. I've spoken internationally to young people, motivating them. And that's my heart and dream, is to bring a call to action to people with or without disabilities.
That is pretty amazing. I just got to clap on that because I would have never known. That's why I really am getting excited about learning more about Shane. But we'll talk more in depth about what Toastmasters is, how you can get involved, and how it changes people. Because Shane is talking about being someone in the back of the room. Are you a back of the room person? Have you ever been a back of the room person? Do you want to move to the front of the room? We're going to talk about some things on Disability Life TV that will help propel you not just to the front of the room, but the front of your career, the front of all those people who said you couldn't. And what do they say? The best revenge is success. So let's be successful in learning a little bit more about Shane, tuning in to Disability Life TV, but more importantly in this moment, thanking our sponsors. Without our sponsors, we wouldn't have a venue to meet wonderful people like Shane. Without BizLinks TV, we wouldn't have the airways or the web sphere to be able to communicate with so many of you. So let's take a break for our sponsors, and we'll be back.
What happens when soldiers come home? Brene Foundation offers hero support to ensure that our heroes abroad can continue to be heroes at home. We link veterans with organizations who are dedicated to guiding the transition from military hero to civilian hero. If you want to find out how you can support our troops at home, please contact the Brene Foundation or visit brene.com.
Does your son need a more challenging, focused, and encouraging educational environment? Renaissance Christian Academy is an affordable private school for boys located in McDonough, Georgia, with certified teachers that are uniquely equipped to help your son master learning. You're welcome to schedule a tour of our facilities by calling 770-305-9881 or by visiting our website at rcaboysacademy.org. Renaissance Christian Academy, developing young men to be great leaders through Christ-centered learning.
Welcome back to Disability Live TV. You came on an amazing day. If you're just tuning in, my name is Yvette Pegues and I'm the host of Disability Life TV. And my guest today is Shane Barron. We left off talking about Toastmasters. Some of you may know what it is, but we're going to break it down to you in bite-sized pieces. So if it's something you're interested in, you can launch it today. So Shane, Toastmasters, what is it? Is it toast? Is it a masters? What is it? What is a Toastmaster?
Toastmasters has been in existence for 90 years. It started out with Dr. Smedley, who wanted to help men learn to speak better professionally and give those quality speeches that they needed to do. And today it's developed into a communications and a leadership program. It's very inexpensive to join, and I've enjoyed it since 2009 now.
And what is your role? You have a specific, not even a role, a title within the Toastmasters community.
I am an area director, which means I oversee a few clubs in the particular district that we live in.
How do you get involved in Toastmasters and clubs and all the other things?
Just go on the Toastmasters International website, put in your zip code, and it will bring up clubs in your area. It will even bring up, if you're in a corporate club, it'll bring that corporate club up, that it may be IBM, which I know you were part of for many years. And so it has all kinds of corporate clubs and different things that you can join.
I'm glad you mentioned that, actually, as a great segue, and thank you for that. The first time I heard of Toastmasters was as a college hire at IBM. I thought I communicated well, but it's one thing to talk and something totally different to communicate. Am I correct?
Yes.
So a corporate-led Toastmasters club has a few different rules and regulations, not by much, but you can start your own club at your organization. You can do it in your neighborhood, so you don't have to be part of a major corporation to have a Toastmasters club. I will tell you that as a new hire, there were certain things that were taboo that I could say at home, but not necessarily in a corporate meeting. So Toastmasters held me accountable. There's actually a process and training by which you have to complete different levels. Am I correct?
Correct.
So there's a book that you have to follow, and I'm really blessed and honored that Shane and I are in the same room so many times that he can actually evaluate me, which means, like, if he wasn't on this side of the camera, he'd probably be on the other side of the camera telling me, you pause too much, you didn't pause enough, you have some crutch words, oh, and it sounds pretty simple, but as a timer, which is one of the roles in Toastmasters, you're careful to know how long to speak. Like, this is a timed show, so I need to make sure that everything fits. And I just want to be able to say to everyone watching that as a brain injury patient, I was told, because it was a left brain injury, that I wouldn't be able to talk and communicate and calculate and do all those things. Well, you can see now I'm a web host, really, talking and interviewing and doing all the things that I was told I couldn't do. And part of my recovery had to do with Toastmasters. I joined a club where it was a safe place to say things that you may not say in a meeting and have people to support you and guide you and lead you into a place where you can be a more functional and effective speaker. So it's not just about talking, right?
Correct.
It's about communicating. Let's share with our viewers the difference between talking and communicating. It sounds simple, but let's go into that a little deeper, because I don't think we necessarily learn that in a school setting, do we?
Sometimes, well, like I said, with the phone calls, you always are saying a point, telling someone, okay, this is what needs to be fixed.
Right.
If you're talking to an automotive mechanic.
Right.
But when you're talking to an audience and wanting to get them to call to action for a idea or a job interview, or you want that person to get to know you and get to know your point, know how you can bring or what you can bring to the table.
Value. And we're spending a lot of time on this episode of Disability Life TV because of one simple 2-part word: self-advocacy. So do you go into a business and say you don't have accessible entrance, scream and yell, and if you can and if you're able, jump up and down? Or do you effectively have a plan, you speak to management, and you advocate on behalf of your disability or your specific need? You don't have to have a disability to be able to self-advocate. But I think in a lot of cases when you can't communicate, it may not be an official DCM approved disability, but think about how ineffective you would be if you could not get that point across. And in the community where disability can be physical, it could be verbal, it could be visual, it's important to understand the different ways to communicate effectively. And Shane brought up a really good point about an interview. So one of the things in a disability community is working and being able to almost sell your value. Is it fair to say that you're
Correct.
almost in a selling position when you're effectively communicating, especially in the case of an interview?
Correct.
Tell us about that.
You're always selling something. It's either yourself or a product. And one thing that a good salesman does is effective communication. And you tell your audience, this is what it is, this is what it does. And you get that point out, what you can do for that job. Because if they don't know that you have this idea or this strength, they won't know unless you're being that effective communicator to give to that employer.
And I like the point that Shane is making, because even with Disability Life TV, we depend on sponsors to keep this show up and running and globally syndicated. So if I communicate to a possible sponsor, I need to make sure they know all the great things about the show, about BizLinks TV, and our amazing guests. And amazing he is, because this quiet gentleman who talked about being in the back of the room has also been in the front of some other cameras. Tell us about those other cameras you've been in front of.
Well, I've done a few short-term TV shows. I've done the miniseries. I've done TV, and I've done movies. I was with Emilio Estevez. I was in the first role with Rene Russo, which was Free Jack.
So he's name dropping here. I'm pretty impressed. Are there other names you can share with us? Because this gentleman has an IMDb profile. That's what actors usually have as a digital resume, if you will. So, there's some royalty here that we need to kind of discuss. You mind dropping a few more names and episodes?
Well, one is Carol Connor as the sheriff and police chief on In the Heat of the Night. I was on several episodes of that. But I got my father involved in that, and he became a featured extra for the last 2 years.
Which show? Can we talk about it?
Yes, Heat of the Night.
Heat of the Night. Okay, so remember the name, Shane Barron, and your father's name?
Richard.
Richard Barron. So the reason why we're bringing this up, not just to name drop, but let's go back to the opening. Shane is a self-described, quiet, timid, bullied, back of the room kind of guy, but finds himself as a DTM with Toastmasters, an effective speaker, an actor. My goodness. How do you manage life with all those things going on?
I just want life to go on and enjoy life and help people. My drive is to help people, be it a person with a disability or someone without a disability.
Is it fair to say that people with your drive, people who have a purpose to help other people, may have had a life where they didn't feel helped or they felt somewhat helpless and have now come to a place where they feel they have more to offer? Is that fair to say?
Very much so. I find a way to drive myself, and I've been in their situations. I've been, like I said, the guy in the back of the room didn't want any interaction with people because of something holding me back. And with Toastmasters and with life, I've just determined that I've got something to give to someone to help them.
Can we spend a minute talking about your beautiful wife and
Yes.
your family?
Yes. I've been married for 5 years as of this past June.
Nice.
And we met, believe it or not, online.
Ooh. Okay. And?
We have 2 children,
Okay.
stepchildren for me, Brandon and Candace, and they've been great children.
It's important to mention that because pre-ADA, a lot of people believe that people with disabilities or had certain limitations, whether it be physical or otherwise, were not fit to be parents. And I can assure you that Shane is an amazing parent. Not only is he an amazing parent, he's an amazing colleague and an amazing friend and has some amazing news. Tell us about the new project we're working on.
About a month ago, we were speaking at an event, and you said, would you be interested in being the administrative director for Dream Right Hope University?
And
And
you said?
And I said yes.
Yes, he said
Because
yes.
it is helping people.
Tell us about Dream Right Hope University.
Dream Right Hope University is for children from 7 to 17, so they can tell their story and motivate and some call to action for someone else. It's just been an awesome platform to see. Gathering the information and setting that organization together has been awesome, so that, because one thing that I've seen in over the years is people with disabilities, their section in a bookstore is about this big. I want it to be this big, because there are people to tell their stories, to help motivate others, and to make them feel comfortable in existence in the world, because a lot of people don't want you to feel comfortable.
Question. As a child who was bullied and was in the back of the room, do you think a book about CP, a book about bullying, just a book about advocating would have helped you as a child?
Oh, yes.
This is why A Legacy of Literature and Dream Right Hope University, which is the nonprofit under which we're helping children between the ages of 7 to 17 turn their storms to stories, is so important. And so it becomes just as common as the 3 Little Pigs, right?
Correct.
We want each and every generation to not just write about their story, but to have that story available to others. And what we usually do at the end of every show, Shane, is we talk about a D-Life diamond. So for my D-Lifers out there, you know exactly what that is, but for the purposes of Shane, I'd love for you to do the honors and giving us just a nugget, a little something that you'd like to share with our viewers that they can take with them and use maybe as a life skill or maybe just a goal for themselves.
Always find someone, or be willing to take that chance in life. As I've said throughout the show, I was the quiet guy in the room. It doesn't take much to become a voice. And that's what I would love for everyone to see, is become their own voice. And there are people out there that are willing to help you become that voice.
And that's a wonderful close, because Disability Life TV is the voice for those who have been shut down and quieted, to unmute those of us who have so much more to share on a platform provided by BizLinks TV through Disability Life TV. This is an amazing show. You don't have to have a disability to be on the show, but if you love someone with a disability and want to see inclusivity, to have everybody included in a world that's growing and changing, then tune in again to Disability Life TV. We love you and thank you for watching.